Family bliss collapsed in an instant when her husband stepped over the threshold with a determined look and a stack of papers in his hands. Behind him loomed his mother, dressed in a festive robe, savoring her victory. A mother's word is the law. She said, "We're getting divorced and splitting the apartment you bought yesterday, so we're getting divorced," he snapped, tossing the documents at his wife's feet. But instead of tears and pleas, loud laughter rang out. Hello, dear listeners. I'm happy to welcome you to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a new and interesting story. Enjoy listening. Emma woke up to her phone vibrating on the nightstand. The sixth alarm out of 8. It was 6:30 a.m. on a Wednesday. Outside it was still dark. February had been especially gloomy this year. She stretched, feeling the familiar heaviness in her lower back, the aftermath of yesterday's 4-hour stretch, hunched over quarterly reports for Marina L. Consulting, a company that always sent documents at the last minute. Greg was snoring beside her, sprawled across 3/4 of the bed. He always slept like the dead. Neither his wife's alarms nor her late-night trips to the computer ever bothered him. Emma carefully slipped out from under the blanket, threw on her old gray robe, and shuffled into the kitchen. The coffee maker kicked on with its familiar rumble, filling the apartment with a sharp, comforting aroma. Today was Wednesday. Today she would finally pick up the keys. 3 years. 36 months. 1,095 days, not counting the leap year. Every single one of those days, Emma had set money aside for an apartment. She counted every dollar, saved every cent. At her main job as an accountant at a construction firm, she made $3,200 a month, not bad for their city. Of that, $1,200 went to rent for their 2-bedroom, another $600 to groceries and utilities, $300 to transportation and miscellaneous expenses. That left $1,100. But it wasn't enough. A year and a half ago, Emma found a side gig doing remote bookkeeping for small businesses. First one client, then a second, then a third. Evenings from 8 to midnight, she sat in front of her laptop, balancing debits and credits, filing returns, checking invoices. Another $1,800 to $2,000 a month. Sometimes more, if a client needed urgent work. Over 3 years, she saved up $145,000, not counting the $18,000 her grandmother had given her 2 years earlier. Emma still remembered that conversation. Her grandmother, Sophia, had called her over at the end of March, sat her down in the kitchen of her small apartment in Medford, and looked at her sternly over her glasses. "Sweetheart, I've been thinking. I'm 82, my health isn't what it used to be. I've got money sitting there, $18,000. I was saving it for my funeral, but I decided it's better to help you while I'm alive than bury myself when I'm dead." "Grandma, what are you saying?" Emma had even broken into a sweat at those words. "You're going to live another 100 years. "I won't," Sophia waved her hand decisively. "And that's fine, I've lived my life. But you're young, you need a place of your own. I hear you're saving." Emma admitted it then. Yes, she was saving. For her own apartment. So she wouldn't have to rent anymore, wouldn't throw money away. "That's right," her grandmother nodded. "Take the $18,000, but do it properly, you hear me? Life is unpredictable. Make it a gift deed, notarize it, so no one can ever say it's marital money, just in case." "Grandma, Greg wouldn't dash." "You don't know what he wouldn't," Sophia cut her off sharply. "I've seen your mother-in-law once. She's a piece of work. And men, sweetheart, they're weak. Their mother says jump, they jump. So do everything by the book. When I buried your grandfather, there were so many freeloaders circling the inheritance it was awful. But my papers were in order, and that's how I fought them off. Remember this, paper will endure anything, but it will protect you too." Emma had laughed back then, but she listened. They went to a notary, a thorough woman in her 40s named Clara Stevens. She drew up the gift agreement, notarized it, explained that the money was now considered personal, not marital property no matter what. Emma signed, received all the copies, and put them in a folder. The $18,000 became her down payment. The remaining $145,000 she saved herself dollar by dollar, evening after evening. The last 6 months had been especially hard. She worked almost without weekends. Slept about 5 hours a night, no more. Red eyes, aching back, fingers flying over the keyboard on autopilot. Friends invited her out, she declined. Her parents asked her to come to the country house, no time. All for those 650 square feet. Greg watched her marathon from the sidelines. Sometimes he joked. Back at the computer again? Well, don't overdo it. His electrician's salary of $2,400 went to his own needs: beer with friends on Fridays, cigarettes, a new phone once a year. He didn't put a single dollar toward the apartment. Emma didn't ask, she knew if she did, he'd either refuse or agree reluctantly and then hold it over her head. It was easier to do it herself. Yesterday, Tuesday, she signed the final document. $163,000 for 650 square feet in a prefab 9-story building on Factory Street. 5th floor, windows facing the courtyard, cosmetic repairs, no furniture, but that didn't matter. The main thing was that it was hers. Completely and entirely hers. The realtor, a man in his 50s with a perpetually red face and gold teeth, handed her the keys. Congratulations, Emma. You're a homeowner now. Here are the documents, everything's here. Registry extract, purchase agreement, acceptance certificate. Registration went smoothly. She took the keys. 2 small keys on a worn ring. And she felt something inside her snap. 3 years of tension released all at once. She almost cried right there in the realtor's office. That evening she came back to their rented 2-bedroom on the 4th floor of a building across from the bus station. Greg was lying on the couch, watching soccer. Real Madrid was playing someone. The commentator was shouting, players in white flashing across the screen. Greg, I bought the apartment, Emma said, taking off her jacket. Huh? He glanced away from the screen for a second. Oh. Well, cool. Congrats. And he turned back to the TV. He didn't ask where it was, how much it cost, when they'd move. Nothing. Emma went into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, drank it in one gulp. Her hands were shaking, maybe from exhaustion, maybe from hurt. She'd worked herself to the bone for 3 years, gone without sleep, and her husband couldn't even bother to be happy for her. Just cool. And back to the TV. She called her parents. Her mom, Sandra, gasped. Sweetheart, finally. I'm so happy for you. Thomas, do you hear that? Emma bought an apartment. Her dad took the phone, his voice warm. Well done. You did it on your own, that's impressive. Grandma would be proud. Emma smiled through the tears that welled up. Thanks, Dad. I couldn't have done it without Grandma. You could have, it just would have taken longer. You're a fighter. When are you moving? I don't know yet. It needs some work, furniture. Slowly. They talked for another 10 minutes and said goodbye. Emma set the phone down and turned around. Greg was standing in the kitchen doorway, scratching his stomach. What did you call your parents for? He asked irritably. You could have told me properly first. I did tell you. You said cool and went back to watching the game. Well, yeah, there was soccer on, he shrugged. Real Madrid is playing. Important match. Emma stayed silent. She didn't feel like arguing. And what was the point? That morning, Wednesday, she planned to stop by Factory Street after work. See the apartment again. As the owner this time. Figure out wallpaper, where to put the bed, finally let herself dream. Greg woke up at 7:30, when Emma was already dressed and wearing makeup. He came into the kitchen yawning and poured himself coffee from her coffee maker. He didn't like his own instant stuff. Why are you all dressed up? He grumbled. Work, Emma said, buttoning her beige blouse. Same as always. Oh. Okay. He sat down at the table and stared at his phone. Emma grabbed her bag and the keys to the rental. I'll be late tonight, she said. I'm stopping by Factory Street to check out the apartment. He didn't even look up, scrolling through social media, snorting at some meme. Emma stepped out onto the landing and closed the door behind her. She stood there for a minute, leaning against the railing. Inside, there was an unpleasant feeling. There was joy, but also emptiness. She'd saved for 3 years, and now there was no one to truly share that joy with. Her husband wasn't interested, her mother-in-law didn't know anything at all. Emma hadn't called her, hadn't told her. Barbara loved to meddle in their lives, to comment and give advice. About the apartment, Emma decided to keep quiet. Her intuition told her it was better that way. She went downstairs and stepped outside. A February wind hit her face. Emma shivered and pulled up her hood. 5 minutes on foot to the bus stop. Buses ran every 10 minutes. It took her half an hour to get to work. Granite Construction was located downtown, in a 2-story building next to City Hall. The bus was nearly empty. Wednesday morning, not rush hour. Emma sat by the window, looking at gray buildings and snow-dusted courtyards. A small city, 300,000 people. Life was quiet, without major upheavals. Factories ran, stores were open, life moved at a steady pace. At work, she was greeted by her colleague Tanya, a woman in her mid-40s with a short haircut and a perpetually cheerful face. They shared an office, desk side by side. "Emma, why are you glowing?" Tanya asked, taking off her coat. "Something happened?" "I bought an apartment yesterday," Emma admitted, smiling. "No way." Tanya clapped her hands. "Finally. I've seen how hard you worked. Congratulations from the bottom of my heart." "Where?" "On Factory Street. 650 square feet, prefab building, 5th floor. Great area, quiet." "So, are you moving now?" "Gradually. It still needs some work, furnishing." "And Greg, how's he taking it?" "Happy?" Emma winced. Greg said cool and went back to watching soccer. Tanya whistled. "That's some support." "Oh well, men are like that. Until thunder strikes, they don't budge. But you'll live well later on." Emma nodded, though doubt stirred inside her. Something was bothering her, but she couldn't quite tell what. Maybe it was just the accumulated exhaustion, 3 years without a break, her body worn down, nerves stretched thin. Maybe now it would finally ease. The day passed in its usual routine: quarterly reports, invoices, statements. The company director, Victor, stopped by the office closer to lunchtime. "Emma, how's the third quarter balance?" "Done, Victor. Filed with the IRS yesterday." "Excellent. You're indispensable." He left. Tanya winked. "See? They value you. And rightly so. ID never managed those reports. They make my head spin." At 5 o'clock, Emma packed up, said goodbye to Tanya, and stepped outside. Factory Street was about 20 minutes away by shuttle bus. She rode over, got off near school number 18, and walked 2 blocks. The building was gray, prefab, an ordinary 9-story block like hundreds in the city. The entrance was clean, smelling of fresh paint. They'd done renovations recently. Emma took the elevator to the 5th floor, pulled out the keys, and opened the door to apartment number 52. 650 square feet. A small entryway, a combined bathroom, a room of about 300 square feet. Plastic windows, new radiators, linoleum floors, old, but intact. Beige wallpaper, peeling in spots. It needed redoing, furniture, curtains. But those were details. Emma walked into the room and stopped by the window. The view was of the courtyard, a playground, swings, a sandbox, benches, 2 elderly women sitting on one of them, talking. Quiet, calm, none of the bus station chaos, no drunken shouting at night. She took out her phone, snapped photos of the room, the window, the view. Sent them to her parents. Her mom replied immediately, "Beautiful. Well done, sweetheart." She didn't send anything to Greg. She didn't feel like it. She stood there another 10 minutes, then locked up and went downstairs. Her heart felt light and anxious at the same time. Pride in herself, joy that she'd made it, and a vague sense of unease. Something was bound to happen, something inevitable. She got home around 7. Greg was sitting at the table, eating pasta with sausages. Apparently he'd reheated it himself. "So?" he asked, not looking up from his plate. "It's nice. The apartment's good, bright." So when are we moving?" "I don't know yet. It needs repairs." "Okay." He finished eating, took the plate to the sink, and went into the room. Turned on the computer and started playing some shooter. Bursts of gunfire, shouts from virtual soldiers filled the apartment. Emma reheated the leftovers of yesterday's soup, sat down in the kitchen, and ate slowly. She thought about how her life was about to change. She would finally have her own apartment, could arrange everything exactly the way she wanted, without asking permission from the landlady of their rented two-bedroom. Live calmly, start saving not for housing anymore, but for something else. Maybe a car. Or a vacation. She hadn't really rested in 3 years. Her phone vibrated. A message from Tanya. "How's the apartment? Did you like it?" Emma replied, "Yes, it's great. I'm happy." "Well, that's wonderful. Now you'll finally start living." "I hope so." She put the phone away and finished her tea. Behind the wall, machine gun fire kept rattling on. Greg was loudly cursing into his headset, apparently playing online with friends. Emma sighed, got up, and went to the bathroom. She washed her face and looked at herself in the mirror. A tired face, shadows under her eyes, the first fine wrinkles at the corners. 31 years old, but she looked every bit of 35. 3 years without sleep, without rest, without joy. All for 650 square feet that were now hers. Only hers. She went to bed at 11. Greg was still sitting at the computer. Emma closed her eyes and fell asleep almost instantly. Her sleep was restless papers, numbers, someone's loud voice demanding explanations. She woke up in the middle of the night with her heart pounding. Greg was snoring beside her, sprawled out. Emma turned on her side and pulled the blanket over herself. Thursday morning began like any other. Alarm, coffee, getting ready for work. Greg woke up later and came into the kitchen just as Emma was putting on her jacket. "Hey, did you tell my mom about the apartment?" he asked, pouring himself coffee. Emma froze. "No. Why would I?" "What do you mean, why?" "She's my mother. She'll be happy." "Greg, your mother can't stand me." "What happiness?" "That's just her personality," he waved it off. "So you'll tell her, right?" "Yesterday I was talking to her about soccer. She asked how things were going. I said Emma bought an apartment. She was really surprised. Everything inside Emma went cold." "You already told her?" "Yeah, last night when she called." "Why?" "Oh. Nothing." Emma left the apartment and closed the door behind her. On the stairwell she stopped and leaned against the wall. Her heart was racing. Greg had told his mother. Barbara. The woman who believed a daughter-in-law should serve, that modern young people were spoiled, that wives used to obey their husbands. The same mother-in-law who had thrown a fit last New Year because Emma gave her a sweater in the wrong style, who gave advice at every meeting on how to cook, how to dress, how to behave. And now she knew about the apartment. Emma went downstairs and stepped outside. The wind whipped her face, snowflakes swirling. She walked toward the bus stop, trying to calm herself. So what if she knew? What could she do? Nothing. The apartment was registered to Emma, the documents were in order, the money was hers. Barbara could be angry all she wanted, it wouldn't change anything. At work, Tanya immediately noticed the tension. What happened? Greg told my mother-in-law about the apartment. So what? I don't know. It just makes me sick. She'll definitely come up with something. Oh, come on. What can she come up with? The apartment is yours, the documents are yours. Mother-in-law or not, it's none of her business. Emma nodded, but the anxiety didn't go away. All day she worked on autopilot, glancing at her phone, expecting a call. But the phone stayed silent. In the evening she came home. Greg was already there, heating dumplings in the microwave. They exchanged brief greetings. Emma went into the room, changed clothes, and sat down to check her email. Her evening side work hadn't been canceled. Marina L. Consulting had sent another batch of documents. At 9 in the evening, the phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Emma answered. Hello? Emma, hi, this is Barbara. The voice was sweet, almost honeyed. Emma had never heard her mother-in-law sound like that. Emma tightened her grip on the phone and leaned back in her chair. Barbara's voice flowed through the receiver, syrupy and thick, like overcooked jam. Emma, I'm so happy for you. Greg told me you bought an apartment. You're such good kids, so smart. I've worried about you all these years renting, throwing money away. And now such joy. Emma stayed silent. Her suspicion grew with every word. Barbara had never called her Emma with such warmth. Usually it was a cold Emma or an impersonal you. Thank you, Barbara, Emma finally managed. Oh, sweetheart, we're family. I was thinking. The voice grew even sweeter. Maybe we should make a gift deed to Greg? Just in case the government takes it, you never know. Times are so unstable these days, anything can happen. If it's transferred to your husband, it'll be safer. You understand, right? Emma squeezed her eyes shut. There it was. Not even a day had passed, and her mother-in-law was already demanding the apartment be signed over to her son. Barbara, everything is officially registered, according to the law. No one is taking anything. Of course, the mother-in-law cooed. I'm just saying, just in case. What if there are problems? And this way Greg will be the owner and everything will be calm. You don't mind, do you? Your family, what difference does it make whose name it's in? There is a difference, Emma replied evenly. The apartment was bought with my money and registered in my name. I'm not transferring it. A pause. The mother-in-law's voice turned a little colder. Emma, don't misunderstand. I'm not insisting. I'm just giving motherly advice. I have more life experience. You're young, you don't know how things can be. Well, think about it in your free time. I'll call you again, we'll talk more. Goodbye, Barbara. Goodbye, sweetheart. Emma put the phone down on the table and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Her head was splitting. She knew this was only the beginning. Barbara wasn't the type to back off after the first attempt. If she had something in mind, she would push it to the end. Greg peeked into the room. Did my mom call? Yes. So? She wants me to sign the apartment over to you. He shrugged. She's just worried about us. Greg, it's my apartment. I saved for 3 years. So what? We're family. What difference does it make whose name it's in? Emma looked at him closely. He stood in the doorway, scratching his stomach, his face indifferent. He truly didn't care. He didn't understand why his wife was so upset. To him, it was just a formality. There is a difference, Emma said quietly. If you don't understand what it is, I'm sorry. Greg muttered something unintelligible and walked away. A minute later, the sound of the TV came on. Another match. Emma went back to work. She opened the documents from Marina L. Consulting and started matching invoices with statements. The numbers blurred before her eyes. She had to reread them several times. At 10:30 she finished, sent the report to the client, shut down the computer, went to the bathroom, and washed her face. She went to bed but couldn't fall asleep for a long time. She tossed and turned, listening to Greg snore beside her. Friday morning brought a new call. Emma was riding the bus to work when her phone vibrated. Barbara. Emma declined the call. A minute later another call. She declined again. The third call. Emma sighed and answered. Hello, Emma, it's me. The voice was no longer honeyed, but firm and cold. Why aren't you answering your phone? I'm on the bus. It's inconvenient to talk. It's convenient enough. Listen to me carefully. Do you understand that the apartment is family property? Greg is my son, and he has a right to it. You can't just dispose of shared property however you want. Emma felt blood rush to her temples. Barbara, the apartment was bought with my personal money. Greg didn't put in a single cent. It's not shared property. How is it not shared? The mother-in-law raised her voice. You're married. Everything bought during marriage is considered joint property. I asked a lawyer. It was bought with money I saved myself. Greg didn't participate. Greg worked, he supported the family. And you saved his money? His money went to his own needs. Emma tried to stay calm, but her voice trembled. I saved for the apartment from my salary and side jobs. You won't fool me. Barbara snapped. I won't let some upstart control what belongs to my family. You will transfer the apartment to Greg, or I'll make you regret it. Goodbye, Barbara. Emma ended the call and blocked her mother-in-law's number. Her hands were shaking. Passengers on the bus glanced at her. The conversation had been loud enough for others to hear. At work, Tanya immediately noticed her condition. What happened? You're pale. Emma told her about the calls. Tanya listened and shook her head. What a mother-in-law. But don't worry, the apartment is yours, the documents are yours. She can't do anything. I don't know, Tanya. I have a bad feeling. Oh, stop it. What can she do? She'll yell and calm down. There are tons of mothers-in-law like that. They all love to boss people around. The main thing is not to give in. Emma tried to focus on work, but her thoughts kept returning to the conversation. Barbara was a stubborn, domineering woman. At 62, she kept the entire family under her control, her younger sister, nephews, and especially her son. Greg was afraid of her, even if he didn't admit it. When his mother said something, he always did it. Emma remembered how 3 years ago she and Greg wanted to go on a seaside vacation. They saved money, picked a tour. Then Barbara found out and threw a fit. How can you go on vacation while I sit at home? I'm your mother, I raised you. Greg caved and suggested taking his mother with them. Emma refused and said it would be better not to go anywhere at all. In the end, they stayed home, and Greg spent the money on a new TV for his mother. So she wouldn't feel offended, he explained to his wife. That was when Emma first realized her husband would never take her side against his mother. But she hoped it was a one-time thing. Now she understood it was the rule. Friday evening, Emma came home exhausted. She wanted only one thing: to lie down and shut off, but that wasn't going to happen. Greg was sitting in the kitchen with a gloomy face. A mug of cold tea stood in front of him. Hi, Emma took off her shoes and went into the kitchen. What happened? Mom called. She said you were rude to her on the phone and blocked her number. Emma dropped her bag onto a chair. I wasn't rude. I just don't want to listen to demands to sign the apartment over to you. And what's wrong with that? Greg finally looked at her. We're family. Why do you need the apartment in your name? Normal wives put things in their husbands' names. Greg, it's my apartment. I worked my ass off for 3 years to buy it. You didn't put in a single dollar. I worked, he raised his voice. I brought money into the house. You spent your money on yourself. On beer, cigarettes, phones. Nothing went into savings. How dare you? Greg jumped up. Don't I have the right to spend my own salary? You do, but then don't say it was a shared fund. He fell silent, sat back down, clenched his fists. Mom says you've changed, that you've become greedy and selfish. Your mother says a lot of things. She's a mother. She wants what's best for us. She wants the apartment in your name and under her control. Emma took a yogurt from the fridge and opened it. And you understand that perfectly well, Greg. He said nothing. Then he stood up and muttered, I'm going to a friend's. And left the apartment. Emma stayed alone. She ate the yogurt, drank some tea, and sat down at the computer. Evening work was waiting. 2 clients had sent documents. She needed to balance accounts and check invoices. She worked until midnight. Greg never came back. Saturday was quiet. Greg returned only around lunchtime, silent and gloomy. Emma didn't ask where he'd been. She didn't want to fight. They each went about their own business. She did laundry and cooked. He lay on the couch, watching shows. Saturday evening, her mom called. How are you doing, sweetheart? I'm fine, Mom. You sound sad. Emma didn't tell her about her mother-in-law. She didn't want to upset her parents. They talked about the weather, about work, and said goodbye. On Sunday, Emma decided to go to Factory Street again to see the apartment. She told Greg she'd be gone for a couple of hours. He nodded, didn't even ask where she was going. The apartment greeted her with silence and emptiness. Emma walked around the room and stood by the window. In the courtyard, boys were playing hockey, chasing the puck with their sticks. A woman was walking her dog along the path. An ordinary Sunday scene. She sat on the windowsill and hugged her knees. For 3 years she had dreamed of this moment of having her own apartment. She imagined how she'd furnish it, what furniture she'd buy, what curtains she'd hang. And now all that joy was poisoned by scandals with her mother-in-law and her husband's indifference. She took out her phone and dialed her grandmother's number. Grandma Sophia didn't answer right away. "Hello, Grandma, it's me, Emma. My girl, hello. How are you? How's the apartment?" "The apartment is good, Grandma. Thank you again for everything." "Oh, sweetheart, it's nothing. I'm just glad I could help. Are you settling in?" "Not yet. Some problems came up." "What kind of problems?" Emma told her about her mother-in-law. Her grandmother listened and snorted softly. "That's exactly why I told you to keep your paperwork in order. Do you have all the documents? The gift deed?" "Yes, I have everything." "Then don't be afraid. Your mother-in-law can bang her head against the wall all she wants, she won't do a thing. The law is on your side. The main thing is not to give in. Women like that can smell weakness. Stand your ground." "I am, Grandma. It's just hard. Greg is on his mother's side. Don't worry too much about his opinion. The apartment is yours, so you decide. A man either accepts it or he doesn't. If he doesn't, then he's not your man." Emma smiled through the tears welling up. "Thank you, Grandma. You always support me. I love you, my girl. You're smart and strong. You'll handle it. Just don't give up." They talked a little more and said goodbye. Emma wiped her tears and got up from the windowsill. Her grandmother was right, she had to stand her ground. The apartment was bought honestly, legally, with her own money. No one had the right to demand that it be transferred. She came home in the evening. Greg was sitting at the computer, playing tanks. He didn't even turn around when she walked in. Monday and Tuesday passed relatively calmly. Barbara didn't call, her number was blocked. Greg spoke to his wife in short phrases but didn't start any fights. Emma almost relaxed, thinking maybe her mother-in-law had calmed down and realized that pressuring her was useless. On Wednesday evening, everything collapsed. Emma came back from work around 6:30. She had just taken off her jacket when the doorbell rang insistently, demanding 3 short rings. She opened the door, and Barbara was standing there. A bag with a pie in her hands, a friendly smile on her face. "Emma, hello. I came to visit, may I?" Emma was taken aback. "Hello. Come in." Her mother-in-law walked into the apartment, took off her coat, hung it on the rack, and headed straight for the kitchen as if it were her own place. She put the bag on the table. "I baked a cabbage pie. Greg loves it." Emma silently put the kettle on. Barbara sat down at the table and looked around. "So, how are things? How's work?" "Fine. You bought an apartment, good for you. I was happy for you." Emma poured tea into mugs, took out plates, and cut the pie. Her mother-in-law took a piece, bit into it, and nodded. "Turned out tasty. Where's Greg?" "He's still at work." "That's fine, we'll wait." They drank tea in silence. Emma felt the tension. Barbara clearly hadn't come just to visit, she was waiting for the right moment to start the conversation. Finally, her mother-in-law finished her tea, set the mug down, and looked closely at Emma. "You know, I've been thinking. You and I had a fight last week. I got carried away, forgive me. I'm just worried about my son, you understand?" "I understand," Emma nodded cautiously. "That's good. Let's put it behind us. We're family, right?" "Yes. Exactly." Barbara pulled her chair closer. "Listen, Emma, I'm serious. An apartment is a good thing. You did well saving up. But let's be honest. You do understand that this is shared property. You and Greg are married. That means everything bought is considered joint property. That's what the law says. Barbara, the apartment was bought with my personal money." "What personal money?" Her mother-in-law smirked. "You're married. Greg works, supports the family, and you save money. That's normal, that's right. But if something happens, the apartment will be split in half. The court will decide that. Nothing is going to happen. Emma tightened her grip on her mug. We're not getting divorced. Who's talking about divorce? Barbara spread her hands. I'm just explaining the law. You say it's your apartment, but in reality it's yours together. And to avoid misunderstandings later, it's better to take care of everything properly now. Transfer it to Greg or put it in both your names, so everything is fair. Emma put the mug on the table. Barbara, I'm not transferring anything. The apartment is registered properly, legally, in my name. Her mother-in-law's face twitched. Her eyes hardened. Do you even hear yourself? I came to you nicely. I'm explaining things like a grown woman to her daughter, and you're digging your heels in. Why? Greed? Or do you not trust Greg? I trust myself, Emma said firmly. And the money I earned. Greg earns money too, her mother-in-law's voice grew louder. Or do you think he's a freeloader? He works, he's a man, he's the head of the family. A head of the family who didn't put a single dollar into savings for 3 years, Emma stood up. Barbara, I don't want to continue this conversation. The apartment is mine. Period. Her mother-in-law stood up as well. Her face turned white with anger. You're selfish, greedy. You only think about yourself. You're destroying the family with your greed. You're not a wife, you're dash, she faltered, searching for words. You're calculating and self-serving. I knew you weren't a match for my Greg. I told him not to marry you, you were wrong, you're bad, but he didn't listen. And now look at the result. Emma stood silently, fists clenched. Her mother-in-law hurled words like stones. A normal wife gives everything to her husband, everything for the family. And you me. You build yourself an apartment and now look down on him. You think having square footage means you can treat your husband like nothing. Barbara, leave, Emma said quietly. I will, her mother-in-law grabbed her bag. I will. But remember my words. You're destroying the family with your greed. And Greg will see it. He'll understand who you really are. And you'll regret it, you will regret it. She stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Emma remained standing in the kitchen, trembling, her heart pounding. Half an hour later, Greg came home. He silently took off his shoes and went into the kitchen. He saw the untouched tea and the pie on the table. Mom was here, he asked. Yes. She demanded that I transfer the apartment to you. I refused. She left saying I'd regret it. Greg sat down at the table and rubbed his face with his hands. You could have met her halfway. She's my mother. She worries. Emma looked at him for a long moment. So you think I should transfer an apartment I saved for on my own for 3 years into your name just to calm your mother down? Don't put it so harshly, he looked away. You know how she is. If you don't meet her halfway, she won't calm down. And what about me? Emma felt anger rising inside. I worked for 3 years, barely slept, never rested, and now I'm supposed to give everything up so your mother can relax? No one's asking you to give it up, Greg raised his voice. Just re-register it. We're family. So when it was time to save, we weren't family. When I slept 5 hours a night while you drank beer with your friends? I earn money, I bring it home. Your money, which you spend on yourself. Greg jumped up. Why are you attacking me? It's not my fault my mother worries. It is your fault that you take her side instead of mine. Emma shouted. He fell silent, breathing heavily. Then he waved his hand. I don't want to talk to you. He went into the room, slamming the door. Emma stayed in the kitchen. She sat down and buried her face in her hands. Tears rose to her throat, but she held them back. She didn't want to cry, she wanted to scream, smash dishes, break furniture. But she just sat there, staring at the wall. That night passed in silence and cold. Greg slept on the couch in the room, Emma slept on the bed. In the morning, he left for work without saying goodbye. At work, Tanya noticed her friend's state. Is it really that bad? It is, Emma admitted. My mother-in-law came over. She demanded I transfer the apartment. Greg is on her side. That woman has lost her mind. Tanya shook her head. Listen, are your documents in order? The money is yours? I have the gift deed from my grandmother. Everything is notarized. Then that's it. The apartment is yours, the law is on your side. Your mother-in-law can lose her mind completely, she still can't do anything. And Greg? Greg will either understand or he won't. If he doesn't, then he's not your person. Sorry to be blunt, but there's no other way to put it. Emma nodded. Inside, everything tightened with hurt and anxiety. Thursday passed in silence. Greg came home late and went straight to bed. He didn't eat, didn't talk. Emma sat at the computer doing her evening work, but her thoughts kept drifting what would happen next, how long this could go on. Friday morning, Greg got up, had breakfast, and suddenly said, Mom is coming over tonight. Emma froze with her coffee cup in her hands. Why? She wants to talk. I told her you'd be home. Greg, I don't want to talk to her. Everything has already been said. She's my mother, he looked at his wife. You have to listen to her. Have to? Emma set the cup down. I don't have to do anything. It's my apartment, my life, my decision. Our life, Greg corrected. We're family. A family where the husband sides with his mother against his wife. He didn't answer. He got dressed and left the apartment. Emma spent the entire day in turmoil. At work she couldn't concentrate, made mistakes in reports, and Tanya even commented on it. Emma, what's going on? These are basic things. Sorry, Tanya, my head isn't working. Maybe you should go home and rest? No, I'll finish the day. By evening, Emma felt completely drained. She came home, changed clothes, sat in the kitchen, and brewed strong tea. She waited. At 7 o'clock, Greg came home. Alone. He went into the kitchen and sat across from his wife. Mom will be here at 7:30. Why did you invite her? She wants to. She says we need to settle everything as a family. Everything is already settled. Emma, just listen to her at least. Maybe she'll approach it differently. Emma stayed silent. Inside, everything was boiling. She knew Barbara wouldn't back down. But what could she do? Legally, the apartment belonged to Emma. The documents were in order, the gift deed notarized. Her mother-in-law was powerless. At 7:30, the doorbell rang. Greg opened the door. Barbara walked in wearing a dark coat, her face serious. She took it off and went into the kitchen. She sat down and folded her hands on the table. Hello, Emma said coldly. Hello, her mother-in-law replied just as coldly. Greg, sit down. We need to talk. Greg sat beside his mother. Barbara looked at her daughter-in-law. I've come one last time to talk like adults. If you refuse, then I'll start acting. Acting how? Emma asked. Legally. I'll file a lawsuit to divide the property. Emma smirked. You can't file a lawsuit. You're not the owner. The apartment is mine. It's a joint apartment, Barbara said sharply. It was bought during the marriage, which means it's subject to division. I consulted a lawyer. Greg is entitled to half, and I will make sure he gets that right. The apartment was bought with money my grandmother gifted to me, Emma replied calmly. There's a gift deed, notarized. That makes it separate property. Barbara went pale. What? The money used to buy the apartment was given to me by my grandmother 2 years ago. $18,000 as a down payment. Everything is notarized. By law, that's my personal money and not subject to division. The rest I earned myself. Her mother-in-law opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at Greg. You knew? No, he muttered, confused. She didn't tell me. I wasn't obligated to tell you, Emma stood up. Barbara, you can go to a lawyer, an attorney, even the DA if you want. The apartment is mine by law. And there's nothing you can do. Her mother-in-law slowly rose. Her face twisted with rage. You planned this. On purpose. You intended from the start to deceive my son? I intended to protect myself. My grandmother turned out to be wiser than I was. She foresaw exactly how this would play out. I won't leave this alone, Barbara hissed. I'll get justice. Justice is already here. The apartment belongs to the person who earned it. Her mother-in-law grabbed her bag and shot Emma a furious look. You'll regret this. Greg, let's go. He stood up, confused, looked at his wife. Emma. Go, she said quietly. They left. Emma stayed in the kitchen, listening as their footsteps faded on the stairs. Greg came back 2 hours later. Emma was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking cold tea and staring out the window. Outside, wet snow was falling, turning into dirty slush on the asphalt. He walked in and stood by the table. His face was tense, jaw clenched, lips pressed tight. Mom's in the hospital, he said dully. Her blood pressure spiked. 170/100. They barely calmed her down. Emma nodded without taking her eyes off the window. Because of you, Greg added quietly. She got so upset she almost had a stroke. Because of me? Emma finally looked at him. Or because her plan didn't work? What plan? She wanted to help. She wanted control of the apartment. Through you. Greg clenched his fists. Do you even understand what you're doing? A mother is sacred. And you treat her like an enemy. She treats me like an enemy, Emma replied wearily. From the moment she found out about the apartment. Before that, I was just an inconvenient daughter-in-law. Now I'm a threat. You're talking nonsense, Greg turned away. My mother has always wanted what's best for us. What's best? Emma stood up. Greg, she demanded that I sign over an apartment I worked 3 years to buy. She called me greedy and selfish. Is that your idea of wanting the best? She was worried. She wanted things to be fair. Fair is when the person who earned something gets to keep it. Greg spun around sharply. And I don't earn money? I've been working for 3 years, bringing money into the house. You spent your money on yourself, Emma repeated for what felt like the 100th time. None of it went toward the apartment. That's because you never asked, he shouted. You saved on your own, decided everything on your own. Now you own it on your own. And I'm what, nothing? You're nothing because you never cared, Emma felt her patience finally snap. For 3 years I worked 2 jobs and slept 5 hours a night. Did you ever once ask how I was holding up? Did you ever offer to help? No. You drank beer, played games, changed phones. And now that I've achieved something, you and your mother are demanding a share. For what? For sitting next to me? Greg fell silent. He breathed heavily, staring at the floor. Mom said, he finally said quietly, that if you don't transfer the apartment, I should file for divorce and divide everything through court. Emma froze. Her heart dropped. What? She said it's the only way to restore justice. Greg still wouldn't look at her. That you deceived me by hiding the money from your grandmother. And that the court would split the apartment anyway because we're married. The court won't split anything, Emma forced the words out. The gift deed is notarized. It's not marital property. Mom says there are ways. Greg finally looked up. The lawyer said it could be challenged, that they could prove the money was joint. Your mother can say whatever she wants. The law is on my side. And are you on my side? He stepped closer. Or does only the law matter? Are you on my side? Emma shot back. Or only your mother's? They stood there, staring at each other. A chasm lay between them, not created in a single day, but slowly, over 3 years. Emma suddenly realized that while she was saving money, she had lost her husband. Not abruptly, not because of infidelity or a scandal. He had simply drifted away, and she hadn't noticed. There was no time work, exhaustion, a goal straight ahead. And he was there, but not with her. I'm going to my mom's, Greg said. I'll stay the night. She's not feeling well. Go, Emma nodded. He packed a bag of pajamas, a change of clothes, his phone charger. Got dressed and left without saying goodbye. Emma was alone. She sat on the couch and hugged her knees. The silence rang, pressing against her ears. Somewhere beyond the wall, neighbors turned on the TV. Muffled voices hummed indistinctly. She took out her phone and thought about calling her mom, but changed her mind. She didn't want to upset her. She called Tanya instead. "Hey," her friend's voice sounded tired. "What's going on?" "Bad, Tanya. Greg went to his mom's. He said she's demanding a divorce and a court-ordered division of the apartment." "Unbelievable," Tanya whistled. "What a family. Listen, do you need a lawyer? Maybe get a consultation just to be sure of your rights?" "I know my rights. The gift deed is notarized. All the documents are in order. The apartment is mine." "Well, there you go. Let them file. They won't win anything. At least you'll see who's who." "I already see," Emma said bitterly. "A mama's boy husband. A manipulative mother-in-law. Family, in a word. Don't get discouraged. You'll get through this. You're strong." "I don't feel strong," Emma admitted. "I feel exhausted. You're just worn out after all these years. You'll rest and things will get better. Just don't give up." They talked a little more and said goodbye. Emma went to bed but couldn't fall asleep for a long time. She tossed and turned, listening to the clock count off the minutes. She finally fell asleep near dawn and woke up to the alarm drained, with a heavy head. Thursday at work passed like a fog. Emma did reports on autopilot, made mistakes, fixed them. Tanya came by several times to ask how she was, but Emma just shook her head. She didn't want to talk. Greg didn't call. In the evening, Emma came back to the empty apartment, reheated some soup, forced herself to eat. She sat down at the computer. Her evening work hadn't gone anywhere. 2 clients had sent documents. She needed to balance the accounts. She worked until 11, then shut down the computer and went to bed. Her phone vibrated. A message from Greg. "I'll come by tomorrow to get the rest of my things. We need to talk." Emma replied, "Okay." There was nothing more to say. Friday morning was gray and cold. Emma got up, got dressed, put on makeup. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized herself. Her face was drawn, dark circles under her eyes, lips pressed tight. In 3 years, she had become a different person. Tired. Closed off. Hard. She rode to work on a half-empty bus, looking out at gray buildings. The city was waking up slowly. Friday, everyone was worn out from the week, the weekend close. Emma thought about how she would spend her weekend alone. And maybe that was for the best. Victor called her into his office after lunch. "Emma, is everything okay? I've noticed you've seemed distracted the past few days." "I'm sorry, Victor. Family issues. I'll try not to make mistakes." "I'm not talking about mistakes," he waved it off. "You're our best accountant. I'm just concerned. Maybe take some time off? Get some rest?" "Thank you, but not right now. I'll manage." He nodded and dismissed her. Emma returned to her desk and sat down. Tanya looked at her with sympathy. "The boss is right. You should rest. No time. Work. Work will always be there. Look at yourself. You're gray. Your eyes are dull. Take a vacation. Go somewhere." "I don't have time for vacations right now." Emma opened another report file. "My husband is planning to divorce me." "Seriously?" "His mother is pushing him. Says they'll split the apartment through court. Even though there's nothing to split." "And what will you sign?" Emma thought about it. Would she sign? A week ago, she would have said no, of course not. They were a family, they'd get through it, it was just a conflict, everything would settle down. But now, after these days of silence, Greg going to his mother, his words about divorce, now she didn't know. "I don't know," she admitted honestly. "I probably will, if he really wants it." "That's the right call," Tanya nodded. "No point hanging on to someone who listens to his mom more than to you. You'll find someone else." "I don't want someone else. I want peace." "And that's right too." The day dragged on endlessly. Emma checked the clock every 10 minutes. Time seemed frozen. Finally, 5 o'clock. The workday was over. She packed her things, said goodbye to Tanya, and went outside. She didn't want to go home. She knew Greg had promised to come by, and she was afraid of that meeting. She didn't want to hear accusations, explanations, manipulation. She just wanted to disappear. But there was nowhere to go. She got on the bus, rode home, climbed to the 4th floor, and opened the door. Greg was already there. Sitting in the kitchen, a stack of papers lay on the table in front of him. "You're here," he stated. "Sit down." Emma took off her jacket, went into the kitchen, and sat across from him. She looked at the paper's divorce filing, printouts of legal articles. "Mom told me to give these to you." Greg slid the papers closer. "It's a divorce petition and a demand for division of property." She showed them to a lawyer. "He said there's a chance to prove in court that the money from your grandmother was just a pretext, that you actually saved together." "Your lawyer is an idiot," Emma said calmly. "The gift deed is notarized. The money transfer is documented. There's a receipt. Everything is legal. Mom says it can be challenged. That you pressured your grandmother to sign the gift deed retroactively." Emma smirked. "My grandmother signed the documents 2 years ago. The notary is alive, the documents are archived. Go ahead and try." Greg clenched his jaw. "You thought of everything, didn't you? Covered yourself in advance?" "I listened to the advice of a smart person. My grandmother turned out to be wiser than all of you." "All of us," he snapped. "So now I'm the enemy? You're the one demanding half of an apartment you put nothing into." Emma stood and walked to the window. "The one who listens to his mother instead of his wife. The one who brought divorce papers because his mom told him to. Call it whatever you want. I'm not your enemy." Greg's voice trembled. "I just want fairness." "Fairness is when everyone gets what they worked for." Emma turned around. "I worked my ass off for 3 years. You drank beer. Where's your share? I worked. For yourself. You spent your money on yourself." Greg grabbed the papers and slammed them onto the table. "Sign it. Mom said we're getting divorced. We'll split everything through court. Let the judge decide." "Let him." Emma nodded. "There's nothing to split." Greg stood there, breathing hard. His face was red, fists clenched. For a second, Emma thought he might hit her. But he just turned and went into the bedroom. She could hear him packing closet doors opening, plastic bags rustling. Emma stayed by the window. She watched the courtyard where kids were sledding, where women walked home from the store with heavy bags. Ordinary Friday life. Everyone had their own problems, joys, troubles. And she had a divorce. It sounded strange. 3 years ago she'd gotten married. She'd hoped, dreamed. And now this. Greg came out of the bedroom with 2 large bags. He set them down in the entryway, went back into the kitchen, picked up the divorce papers and the property division documents from the table, and handed them to Emma. "Mom said you have to sign. Tell your mother I'll think about it." Emma took the papers and skimmed them. "And tell her to get ready for court. Everything will be made clear there." "You'll regret this," Greg said through clenched teeth. "Mom always gets what she wants. We'll see." He grabbed the bags and left the apartment. The door slammed, echoing through the empty rooms. Emma sank into a chair. She laid the papers on the table and stared at them. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Demand for division of marital property. Itemized list, apartment at such and such address, valued at $163,000. She took out her phone and called her grandmother. "Hello, sweetheart." Sophia's voice was upbeat. "How are things?" "Grandma, Greg filed for divorce. He wants to split the apartment." "Let him want," her grandmother replied calmly. "Do you have your documents?" "Everything's in order." "Then don't panic. The court will sort it out. The main thing is don't give in to provocations. Women like your mother-in-law love to pressure people. But everyone is equal before the law. You've got paperwork, they've got ambitions. Paperwork wins." Emma smiled through the tears rising in her eyes. "Thank you, Grandma." "Of course. Hang in there, my girl. Everything will be fine. You'll get through this and come out stronger. She hung up, lay down on the bed, and closed her eyes. She wanted to cry, but no tears came. Just emptiness inside, cold and heavy. She fell asleep late and woke up early. Saturday began with Emma removing everything from the apartment that reminded her of Greg. She threw out his mug, took his slippers to the trash, poured his cologne down the toilet. She wiped down the shelves in the closet and washed all the bedding. By noon, the apartment was clean, empty, impersonal. Emma sat on the couch and turned on the TV. Some home renovation show was on. The host enthusiastically explained how to transform a small apartment for $5,000. Emma watched without really listening. Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. She opened it. Barbara. Apparently she'd borrowed someone's phone since her old number was blocked. Emma, this is Barbara. We need to meet and talk calmly, without Greg. Come to my place tomorrow at 2. You know the address. Emma reread the message several times. Meet and talk. About what? Everything had already been said. Or maybe her mother-in-law had come up with a new plan. She replied, why? The response came a minute later. There's something important to discuss. It concerns both of you. Come. Emma thought it over. Go or not go? On one hand, what was the point? Barbara would demand the same thing anyway. On the other, she was curious. What had she come up with now? What was her next move? She typed, okay, I'll come. Sunday dragged on slowly. Emma cleaned, cooked, watched movies. She thought about the upcoming meeting, rehearsed what her mother-in-law might say, practiced her responses. At 2 in the afternoon, she arrived at Barbara's building, a 5-story prefab on Garden Street, 2nd floor. She climbed the narrow staircase and rang the doorbell. Her mother-in-law opened the door. She was wearing a house robe, not the festive one, but an old gray one with worn sleeves. Her face was serious, no makeup. Come in, she said shortly. Emma took off her shoes and stepped inside. A small entryway, a room about 300 square feet, a tiny kitchen. Old but solid furniture. A Soviet-era couch, a polished wardrobe, an oak table. Photos on the walls, Greg as a child. Greg in the army. Greg at the wedding. Barbara went into the kitchen. Emma followed. 2 mugs, a teapot, and a plate of cookies were already on the table. Sit, her mother-in-law pointed to a chair. Emma sat down. Barbara poured tea and slid the mug toward her. Drink. We'll talk. About what? About the apartment, the divorce, the future. Barbara sat across from her. Listen to me carefully. Emma, I didn't come to argue. I came to explain. Go ahead. Barbara sighed and rubbed her temples. Greg is my only son. I raised him alone. His father left when he was 5. I worked 3 jobs to feed him, clothe him, educate him. I devoted my whole life to him. Do you understand? I understand, but that doesn't give you the right to control my apartment. Don't interrupt me, her mother-in-law cut her off sharply. I'm not finished. Greg grew up and got married. To you. I was against it, to be honest. I could see you weren't one of us, not our kind, not our upbringing. But he loved you and insisted. I accepted it, thought maybe things would work out. Emma stayed silent, gripping her mug, feeling anger boil inside. You've been living together for 3 years. I see that you don't respect him. You work 2 jobs, save money, don't tell him anything. You buy an apartment and register it in your own name. Is that what you call a family? A family is when a husband supports his wife, Emma replied coldly. When he helps instead of drinking beer while she works nights. This is your fault, Barbara flared up. You shut yourself off, you took everything on yourself. A man sees his wife handling it all and thinks, fine, why should I strain myself? So it's my fault he's immature? It's your fault you destroyed the family with your pride. Her mother-in-law slammed her fist on the table. A normal wife gives everything to her husband. Everything for him, for the family. And you save for yourself, register everything in your own name. Selfish. Emma set the mug down and stood up. I've listened. I'm leaving. Sit down. Barbara barked. I'm not finished. I am. Everything is clear. You think I should give the apartment to Greg because I'm his wife and therefore obligated. I believe I have the right to what I earned. We won't find common ground. Goodbye. She went to the entryway and put on her boots. Barbara rushed out of the kitchen and grabbed Emma by the sleeve. You'll regret this. Greg will take you to court. We'll get what we want anyway. Emma pulled her sleeve free. Try. She left the apartment and went down the stairs. Her breathing was heavy, her hands shaking. Outside, she stopped and leaned against the wall of the building. The cold wind burned her face, but she barely noticed. She took out her phone and called Tanya. Tanya, can I come over? Of course. What happened? I'll tell you when I get there. An hour later, Emma was sitting in her friend's kitchen, drinking strong tea with a splash of brandy. She told her about the meeting with her mother-in-law. Tanya listened, shaking her head. What a monster. Sorry, but there's no other word. So she raised her son alone, so what? I raised my daughter alone too, but I don't think she owes me her whole life. She's convinced I owe everything to Greg. You don't owe him anything. Especially if he didn't put in a dime. Emma, just hold your ground. Don't break. Let them go to court, let them puff themselves up. You've got documents, they've got ambitions. Documents are stronger. My grandma says the same thing. You've got a smart grandma. Listen to her. They stayed a while longer, talking about work and plans for the coming week. Tanya walked Emma to the door and hugged her. Don't worry. It'll all settle down. You'll see. Emma came home late that evening. The apartment greeted her with emptiness and silence. She changed, washed her face, and went to bed. She couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Her mother-in-law's words, Greg's face, the divorce papers kept spinning in her head. Monday morning brought another call. This time from Greg. Emma answered, already expecting another round of accusations. Emma, it's me. Are you home? No, I'm on my way to work. I need to talk to you. Tonight. About what? About the divorce. Mom wants us to handle everything quickly. Without court. Amicably. Emma smirked. Amicably? How exactly? I give up the apartment and you leave me alone? No. Just. Without scandals. We split everything evenly and part peacefully. There's nothing to split, Greg. I've said it 100 times. Emma, please, there was a note of pleading in his voice. Let's meet and talk calmly. Maybe we can find a compromise. Okay. Tonight at 7. At my place. Okay. I'll come. Emma ended the call. A compromise. Interesting. What had they come up with now? The day flew by. Emma worked, submitted reports, talked to clients. Tanya asked a couple of times how she was doing. Emma said she was fine. In the evening, she headed home with a heavy heart. She didn't want to see Greg or listen to his arguments. But there was no backing out. He arrived exactly at 7. He came in, took off his shoes, went into the kitchen. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes. Hi, he said quietly. Hi. Sit down. They sat at the table. Greg was silent, fiddling with his phone. Finally, he exhaled. Emma, I don't want a divorce. She raised an eyebrow. Seriously? Then who brought the papers on Friday? Mom made me. He looked away. I tried to refuse, but she said I was a wimp if I didn't put you in your place. Put me in my place? Emma smirked. Well? How did that go? Don't laugh, he looked up. This is hard for me. I'm caught between two fires. Mom on one side, you on the other. I don't know what to do. You should have figured that out 3 years ago. Show interest, support, help rather than drinking beer. Greg clenched his fists. How long are you going to bring up beer? I have the right to relax after work. You do. But then don't demand a share of an apartment you were relaxing through while I was working. He went quiet. Then he pulled a folded sheet of paper from his pocket and placed it on the table. Mom wrote this. A proposal. Read it. Emma unfolded the paper. Barbara's handwriting large, sweeping. I propose the following. Emma transfers the apartment to Greg. In exchange, Greg agrees not to evict her and not to sell the apartment for 5 years. After 5 years, if the marriage is preserved, the apartment will be registered in both names. If the marriage dissolves, the apartment remains with Greg, and Emma receives compensation in the amount of $30,000. Emma finished reading and looked up at her husband. Is this serious? Mom thinks it's fair. Greg, your mother thinks I should give up an apartment I bought with my own money and, in return, get permission to live in it. And if we divorce in 5 years, I get $30,000 instead of $163,000. Well, basically, yes. Emma stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the courtyard where streetlights illuminated empty paths. Tell your mother, she said without turning around, that her proposal is complete nonsense. The apartment is mine. I'm not giving it to anyone. If you want to go to court, be my guest. My documents are in order. The law is on my side. Do whatever you want. Emma. That's it, Greg. Leave. I have nothing more to say to you. He stood there for a moment, then picked up the sheet from the table and folded it back into his pocket. He went to the entryway and put on his jacket. You'll regret this, he threw over his shoulder on the way out. Everyone keeps telling me that, Emma smirked. But the only thing I regret right now is marrying you. He left, slamming the door. Emma stayed by the window. Inside, it was empty and cold, but at the same time calm. The decision had settled. She would not back down. Let the whole world turn against her if it wanted to. The apartment was hers. She earned it, she registered it, and she would protect it. The next few days passed in tense anticipation. Emma worked, came home, ate, slept. Greg didn't call. Barbara stayed silent too. On Thursday evening, a letter arrived by mail certified, with a return receipt. Emma opened it, a court summons. A lawsuit for dissolution of marriage and division of marital property. Plaintiff, Greg Martin. Defendant, Emma Martin. She read it and placed it on the table. So they decided. Fine. She was ready too. She called her grandmother. Grandma, they filed in court. So what? They want to divide the apartment. Let them want it. Go see a lawyer, show them your documents. Have them prepare a written response to the court. Everything will be fine, don't panic. Emma scheduled a consultation with a lawyer, a woman in her early 50s, Elvira Parker, experienced, with cool, sharp eyes. She listened to the situation and reviewed the documents. Everything is in order, she said. The gift deed is notarized. The transfer is confirmed. There's a receipt. These are your personal funds. Not subject to division. The court will deny the claim. And if they insist, let them. The law is on your side. The main thing is don't get nervous. Everything will be fine. Emma left the office reassured. Elvira Parker would prepare the written response and submit the documents. The case was won in advance. And yet the anxiety wouldn't go away. Something told her Barbara wouldn't give up so easily. She had a plan. What it was unclear. But there was one. On Friday morning, Emma woke to the doorbell sharp, insistent, 3 quick rings in a row. She jumped up and checked the time, 7:30 a.m. Who could it be this early? She threw on a robe, went to the door, and looked through the peephole. Greg and Barbara were standing on the landing. Her mother-in-law was wearing that same festive robe. Her face was triumphant, eyes blazing. Emma opened the door. What happened? Greg walked in, his mother right behind him. They went straight to the kitchen without asking permission. Barbara sat down, folding her hands over her stomach. Greg threw a stack of papers onto the table. Divorce petition, demand for division of property. A mother's word is the law, he blurted out loudly, like a memorized line. She said we're getting divorced and splitting the apartment you bought yesterday, so we're getting divorced. Behind him, Barbara nodded like a toy bobblehead. Lips pressed tight, righteous look in her eyes. Emma looked at both of them, at the husband she had once loved, at the mother-in-law who had decided she owned someone else's life, and burst out laughing. She laughed until tears streamed down her cheeks, holding onto the table so she wouldn't fall. She laughed at the absurdity of it all, at their audacity, at the relief. Finally, everything was out in the open. No more pretending. "What's wrong with you?" Barbara hissed, half rising from her chair. "You're laughing?" Emma wiped her tears and straightened up. "Perfect. I've got just one piece of news." She went to the closet, opened the top shelf, took out a folder of documents, returned to the kitchen, and laid the papers out on the table one by one: the gift deed, the receipt, the transfer confirmation. "The apartment was bought with money my grandmother gifted me 2 years ago. Here's the gift deed, here's the receipt, here's the confirmation of the $18,000 transfer. Everything is notarized. By law, this is not marital property. There's nothing to divide." Barbara grabbed the documents with trembling hands and brought them close to her face, her eyesight clearly not what it used to be. She read, tracing the lines with her finger. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. Her mouth opened and closed. How is this possible?" she muttered. "The notary said. The lawyer said everything gets divided." "Greg, you said she saved the money herself." "I did save it myself," Emma smirked. "The remaining $145,000 is my own, earned with blood and sweat. But the down payment was my grandmother's gift, and she insisted I do everything properly. Life is unpredictable," she said. Turns out she was right. Barbara let the papers slip from her hands. They fell onto the table and scattered across the floor. She grabbed the back of the chair and swayed. Her face twisted, eyes rolled back. "Mom!" Greg shouted, rushing to her. Barbara collapsed sideways. Greg tried to catch her, but she was heavy and he couldn't hold her. She hit the floor, her robe riding up. Her head struck the chair leg with a dull thud. Emma rushed to the phone and dialed 911. The ambulance arrived in 12 minutes. Emma opened the door and let in 2 paramedics, a man in his 40s and a young woman. They went into the kitchen, where Barbara lay on the floor and Greg hovered, patting her cheeks. "Step back," the paramedic said curtly, kneeling beside her. He took her blood pressure, shined a flashlight in her eyes, checked her pulse. Barbara groaned and opened her eyes. "Blood pressure 180/110, he told the woman. "Hypertensive crisis. We're taking her in." They lifted Barbara, seated her on a chair, and placed a tablet under her tongue. She came to fully and looked around with a cloudy stare. She saw Emma, her face twisted with rage. You did this on purpose. You wanted to kill me." "Barbara, calm down," the female paramedic held her by the shoulders. "You can't get upset, your pressure is already high. She deceived my son, stole the apartment." "Mommy, quiet," Greg crouched beside her and took her hand. "Everything will be fine. You're going to the hospital, they'll take care of you." "I'm not going anywhere until she admits it." Barbara tried to stand, but the paramedic restrained her. "You're going now," he said firmly. "Otherwise you risk a stroke. Get ready." Greg rushed around the apartment, gathering his mother's things: coat, purse, documents. The paramedics helped Barbara to her feet and guided her out. At the door, she turned and shot Emma a look full of hatred. "You'll regret this." "I'll be back." "Goodbye, Barbara," Emma replied evenly. They left. Greg lingered in the entryway and turned back. "Are you happy now? My mother almost died because of you." "Because of me?" Emma crossed her arms. "Or because her plan failed?" "What plan?" "She wanted justice. She wanted my apartment. Through you. And it didn't work." Greg clenched his fists and stepped closer. "You deliberately didn't tell us about your grandmother. You waited for this moment to humiliate us." "I wasn't obligated to report my finances to your mother." Emma didn't back down. "The apartment was bought legally. The documents are in order. You want court? Fine. The result will be the same." "We'll see," he snarled. "The lawyer said there are ways to challenge it. Go ahead, just don't waste your money." "Emma." They're calling from downstairs, a paramedic's voice echoed from the stairwell. Go to your mother, Emma nodded toward the door. She's unwell, and I need to get to work. He hesitated for another second, then turned and ran out. Emma closed the door and leaned against it. Her hands were shaking, her heart pounding. But inside there was a strange calm. She had done what she needed to do. She had protected what was hers. She went to the kitchen and gathered the scattered documents from the floor. Carefully put them back into the folder and returned it to the closet. She poured herself a glass of water and drank it in one gulp. She checked the time 8:30. She was running late for work. She got dressed, put on makeup, and left the apartment. On the bus, she took out her phone and called Tanya. Tanya, I'll be about 20 minutes late. I had to call an ambulance. What happened? Her friend asked, alarmed. I'll tell you at work. At the office, Tanya bombarded her with questions. Emma told her everything: the morning visit, Greg and his mother, the laughter, Barbara fainting. Tanya listened with wide eyes. No way. You're something else. I laughed right in their faces. I couldn't stop. It was so absurd. They showed up like it was a parade, mother-in-law in a festive robe, Greg with papers. They thought I'd break and sign. And UBAM documents on the table. Beautiful, Tanya laughed. I can just imagine their faces. Barbara's went white, then red, then white again. Then she fainted. Serves her right. Don't go after what's not yours. The day passed in the usual routine. Emma worked, submitted reports, talked to clients, trying not to think about the morning. But her thoughts kept drifting back to Barbara's face, Greg's words, the papers scattered on the floor. That evening she came home exhausted. She reheated soup, ate, sat down at the computer. Evening work. Marina L. Consulting had sent an urgent request. A tax return needed to be filed by Monday. Emma worked until midnight, then shut down the computer and went to bed. Saturday morning began with a call. Greg. Emma stared at the name glowing on the screen for a long moment. Then she answered. Hello? Emma, it's me. Mom's in the hospital. His voice was tired and flat. They admitted her to cardiology. Her blood pressure is all over the place. Doctors say the stress was severe. I'm sorry. You did this on purpose, didn't you? He asked quietly. You didn't say anything about your grandmother's money. You waited until we came to humiliate us. Emma sat up in bed and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Greg, I wasn't obligated to report to your mother. The apartment was bought with my money and registered legally. Everything else is none of her business. But you knew we'd demand division. You could have said it right away. Why? So your lawyer could come up with another scheme to get around the law? No, thanks. You've changed, hurt crept into Greg's voice. You've become cold. Mean. I've learned to protect myself, Emma replied calmly. Because no one else did. Not you. Not your mother. You only demanded. We demanded justice. Justice is that the apartment belongs to the person who earned it. That's me. Greg was silent for a moment, then asked, Will you sign the divorce papers? Emma thought about it. Would she sign? 2 weeks ago she would have said no. She wanted to save the marriage, believed everything could be fixed. But now, after everything that had happened, she knew there was nothing left to fix. Greg had chosen his mother. Not today, but long ago, 3 years ago, the first time he didn't stand by his wife. And that choice was final. I will, she said. Prepare the papers, I'll sign. But the apartment stays with me. That's not up for discussion. Mom says Greg, Emma interrupted, your mother can say whatever she wants. It doesn't matter. The apartment is mine by law. If you want to sue, go ahead, but you'll lose. My documents are airtight. We'll see, he said stubbornly. We will, Emma agreed. Goodbye, Greg. She ended the call. She sat on the bed, hugging her knees. Inside there was emptiness. No anger. No resentment. No pity. Just exhaustion and relief. It was finally over. She could breathe. She called her grandmother. "Grandma," Greg agreed to the divorce. "Good," Sophia replied calmly. "No point wasting your life on a mama's boy. The apartment is yours?" "Mine." I showed the documents. My mother-in-law fainted. They took her to the hospital with high blood pressure. Her grandmother snorted. "Good. Let her lie there and think about her behavior. And you, my girl, hang in there. The beginning will be hard, then you'll get used to it. But you'll be your own boss. Thank you, Grandma. For everything. The money, the advice, the support." "Oh, stop it. That's what I'm here for, to help you. You're smart. You'll handle everything." They said goodbye. Emma got up, went to the kitchen, and made coffee. She sat by the window and looked out at the courtyard. The sun broke through the clouds, lighting up the snow-covered paths. Kids were building a snowman. A woman was walking her dog. Ordinary Saturday life. And she was getting divorced. A strange word, it grated on the ear. But with it came freedom. She could live the way she wanted, without looking over her shoulder at someone else's opinion. No more accusations. No more manipulation. Just living. A week later, Greg sent over the divorce papers. Emma signed them and took them to the registry office. Another month passed, and the divorce was finalized. Barbara was discharged from the hospital but never called or came by again. Greg picked up the last of his things from the rented apartment and disappeared from Emma's life. She moved to Factory Street in early March. She did some light renovations, repapered the walls, painted, bought new furniture. A bed, a couch, a table, a wardrobe. Everything simple, inexpensive, but hers. The first night in the new apartment, Emma slept poorly. It was unusually quiet, unusually empty. But by morning, she adjusted. She got up, made coffee, and sat by the window, watching the courtyard where kids were running to school and men were hurrying off to work. Ordinary life, one that now had room for her too. She called her mom. "Hi, Mom. I moved." "Sweetheart, finally. How's the apartment?" "It's good. Bright, quiet. Mine. We'll come by this weekend to see it. Your dad is proud of you. He says you did great, made it on your own." "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you." "You would have. You're a fighter." After the call, Emma got ready for work. On the bus, she looked out the window. The city was waking up, filling with motion. She was heading to work from her own apartment, not a rental where she had to pay a landlord every month and put up with comments, but from her own place. 650 square feet, entirely hers. At work, Tanya greeted her with a smile. "So, homeowner, how is it?" "Great. Unusual, but good. That's how it should be. Now you'll live for yourself, not for someone else's family. You'll find another Greg better." "I don't want to look for anyone right now," Emma turned on her computer. "I just want to live quietly. No fights, no demands, no manipulation." And that's right. Take a break from men. They're more trouble than joy anyway. They worked and talked about summer plans. Tanya was planning a trip to the beach with her daughter. Emma hadn't decided yet. Maybe she'd travel too. Now the money wasn't going into an apartment, she could finally spend it on herself. 2 months later, in early May, Emma ran into Greg by chance. She was coming back from the store with grocery bags. He was walking out of the building across the street. They stopped, looking at each other. Greg looked back, thin, older, dark circles under his eyes. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi. How are you?" "Okay. And you?" "SOSO. Mom keeps complaining after the hospital, saying you tricked her. I'm tired of hearing it. I moved out. Renting a studio on the outskirts." "I see." They stood in silence. Greg shifted from foot to foot. "Do you regret how it all turned out?" Emma thought about it. Did she regret it? Yes, only the 3 years she'd spent in the marriage, the hopes that never came true. But not protecting her apartment. Not leaving a man who chose his mother over his wife. "No," she answered honestly. I don't regret it. Greg nodded and looked down. Mom said you'd regret being alone, that no one would want you like this. Your mom said a lot of things. I don't live by her script. Got it. Well, take care. You too. He walked away, hunched, hands in his pockets. Emma watched him go, then turned and headed toward her building, toward her apartment, her life. That evening, she sat on the balcony, drinking tea. The sun was setting, painting the sky pink and orange. The city was quieting down for the night. Somewhere below, kids were laughing, a dog was barking, music played from someone's window. Emma took out her phone and opened a photo of her grandmother. Sophia looked back from the screen, stern, wise, loving. Thank you, Grandma, Emma said softly into the empty space. You were right. Life really is unpredictable. But I made it. She finished her tea and went back inside. Lay down on her bed, in her apartment, under her own roof. Closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be a new day, without fights, without reproaches, without anyone else's demands. Just her day. And that was the best thing that could have happened.